Once upon a time. Long ago, there was a young man named Ethan. He was well known among the townspeople for his intelligence and sharp thinking. He wasn't a merchant or a warrior, just a simple man who earned a living using his skills in math and solving puzzles. Ethan didn't have wealth, but he possessed something far more valuable: a brilliant mind. One morning, while walking through the market looking for work, he heard shouting coming from a nearby corner. It was Mr. Anderson, one of the wealthiest merchants in town, yelling in anger, "Thief! Catch the thief!" People rushed toward the commotion, and when the guards arrived, Mr. Anderson pointed a trembling finger at Ethan. "That's him! He stole my bag full of gold!" All eyes turned to Ethan, who stood frozen in shock. He had no idea what was happening. He looked around for anything that could prove his innocence, but found himself surrounded by accusing fingers. "I didn't steal anything," he said firmly. "Why are you accusing me?" But Mr. Anderson insisted. One of his servants even claimed to have seen Ethan running away with the bag. Before he could explain himself, the guards arrested him and took him to prison. Among the murmurs of the crowd, some believed he was guilty, while others felt there must be a misunderstanding. Thrown into a cold, dark cell, Ethan sat alone, confused and frightened. He kept replaying the events in his head. "This makes no sense. I wasn't even near the merchant. How could his servant say he saw me?" Ethan knew there was a mystery to solve. The truth was not as it seemed. He had to think fast. Judge Samuel Dawson, known for his fairness but also for his strictness, would not hesitate to convict him without solid proof. The next day, a guard informed Ethan that his trial would take place in just 3 days. That gave him very little time to prove his innocence or face an unknown fate. Ethan spent a sleepless night in his cell, trying to piece things together. He was convinced Mr. Anderson had set him up, but how could he prove it? When the sun rose, the guards brought him to the grand courtroom. Tall pillars surrounded the space, and the high ceiling was decorated with old carvings. Judge Dawson sat at the front, an older man with a white beard and sharp eyes. The judge banged his gavel and said, "Ethan, you are accused of stealing Mr. Anderson's gold. A witness saw you fleeing the scene. What do you have to say?" Ethan raised his head with confidence. "Your Honor, I didn't steal anything. I ask for a chance to prove my innocence." The judge gave a faint smile, clearly curious. "And what proof do you have? The bag is still missing, and a witness claims to have seen you." Ethan paused, then replied smartly, "Your Honor, anyone can claim to have seen something. May I ask the witness a few questions?" The judge nodded. The servant who accused Ethan stepped forward. Ethan examined him closely. "Tell me," Ethan asked, "when exactly did you see me take the bag?" The servant replied quickly, "It was in the afternoon, just after lunch." Ethan nodded. "And in which hand was I carrying the bag?" The servant hesitated, then said, "In your right hand." Ethan turned to the judge and said, "That's a lie, Your Honor. As you can see, I cannot use my right hand due to an old injury from childhood." He raised his hand, revealing visible scarring and stiffness. A hush fell over the courtroom. People began whispering. Judge Dawson stared at the servant. "Is this true?" The servant turned pale and mumbled incoherently. The judge turned to Ethan. "That's a strong argument, but not yet enough. You have 2 more days to bring solid evidence. If not..." He banged his gavel again and ordered Ethan returned to his cell. Though he hadn't proven his innocence yet, Ethan knew he was getting closer to the truth. But he still had a bigger challenge. Who really stole the bag? And how could he prove it? Back in his cell, Ethan sat in the corner, his mind racing. He needed a clever plan. He realized the servant was lying, but that alone wasn't enough. He remembered something important. Mr. Anderson never mentioned how much gold was in the bag. How could he be sure it was all still there? Ethan needed more information, and the only place to find it was in the prison itself. He spoke with an older inmate known as Mr. Harris, a wise man who knew everything that happened in town. "Mr. Harris," Ethan asked, "have you heard about the stolen gold?" The old man chuckled. "Theft happens all the time, son. But I heard something strange about this one. A fisherman in the market said he saw Mr. Anderson late that night carrying a bag out of his store and taking it somewhere secret." Ethan's eyes widened. If the merchant had moved the bag before reporting it stolen, how could it have been stolen at all? Now, Ethan had a strong suspicion that Mr. Anderson was hiding something, but he still needed proof. So he devised a clever trap. Ethan requested a meeting with Judge Dawson. "Your Honor," he said, "I have a proposal that might reveal the real thief." The judge raised an eyebrow. "And what is it?" Ethan smiled. "Ask Mr. Anderson to swear in front of everyone that he only had one bag of gold that day, and that he has told the court everything." The judge studied Ethan for a moment, then said, "Strange request, but logical. We'll do it tomorrow in public." The next day. The courtroom was full. News had spread that Judge Dawson was going to test Mr. Anderson's honesty. People were eager to see what would happen. Many now believed Ethan might be innocent. Mr. Anderson stood before the judge, pale but composed. The judge asked, "Mr. Anderson, in front of everyone, do you swear you only had one bag of gold the day of the theft, and that you have told the full truth to the court?" Mr. Anderson hesitated, then swallowed and said, "I swear, Your Honor." Ethan stepped forward and said loudly, "Then why did a fisherman see you carrying another bag that night before the theft?" Gasps filled the room. Mr. Anderson's face twisted with fear. He tried to deny it, but doubt had already filled the room. Judge Dawson slammed his gavel. "Mr. Anderson, do you have anything to say?" Ethan added, "Your Honor, to know the truth, we must search his store. If he's innocent, we'll find nothing." The judge nodded, and guards were sent to search the store. Within minutes, a guard returned holding an old wooden chest. Inside was a leather pouch full of gold, the missing bag. The crowd erupted. Mr. Anderson stood frozen. Ethan smiled. "So this is the gold you claimed was stolen, but it was never stolen, was it?" With nowhere left to run, Mr. Anderson collapsed to his knees and confessed, I hid the bag. I was drowning in debt and made up the theft to escape paying. When I saw Ethan passing by, I blamed him to distract everyone." Judge Dawson shouted, "Take him to prison immediately. Let this be a lesson to all who try to frame the innocent." A new beginning. The crowd cheered as Ethan walked free. Judge Dawson approached him, admiration in his eyes. "You're a clever man, Ethan. Few could uncover the truth like you did. I have an offer for you." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "What kind of offer, Your Honor?" The judge smiled. "I want you to work with me as an assistant, to help solve complex cases. A mind like yours should not be wasted." Ethan was surprised but honored. He knew this was a new beginning, a life built on justice, intelligence, and truth, instead of false accusations.